So we are here to talk about how to structure your entire book series in advance. And this is a very exciting topic for us because many writers today want to write a series or already writing series or just dream of writing a series. And so we wanted to share with you some very interesting things about writing a series. So first, who am I? I am a best-selling author of the series Write Novels That Sell. And this is Secrets to Editing Success, Secrets to Outlining a Novel, and Secrets to Writing a Series. And my co-author happens to be on this call, Lucy Cuck. There she is. We wrote these books together over the last couple of years. I'm an award-winning fiction author. I write murder mysteries. I'm a structural editor, which I don't really do anymore. I've done hundreds of books, but I have moved on from that to running Fictionary. And I'm the CEO and founder of Fictionary. And Fictionary is my company. I started it from the breath of an idea. And the goal behind Fictionary is to help writers tell a powerful story. So we focus on the structure of a story, the structure of a scene. We don't do any copy editing or proofreading. We're all about how do you structure a story. And so today we're going to talk more about how do you structure a scene. That's our website. Oops, sorry. Our website is just fictionary.co, not .com. That's our website. So let me just talk a little bit about Fictionary so you know what you're getting into here. So we start right at the outlining process, and we're going to talk about outlining a series today. We've got a roadmap to help you write and edit. Our software gives you instant feedback. There is AI involved in it, but we don't use AI to help you write your manuscript. We use AI to help you evaluate your manuscript. We never touch the manuscript. We don't train on AI. It's all private. Our goal is to help you write the best story possible with tools to help you and not tools to do it for you. You can see your story, and I'm going to show you how you can see it in Fictionary. You can edit with a plan. We have live experts. Linda's here. We've got Fictionary certified StoryCoach editors who teach live in our courses in the community. You can hire them as professional editors either through us or on their own when you get to know them. And you can get qualified to become an editor too. So this is us in a nutshell. And now, oh, look who's Fictionary. I did that out of order. That's okay. We're going to start now talking about what is a series. So it's more than one novel, but these novels are connected in some way. And the way they're connected is either by plot or character or setting. And so we're looking for what is going to connect a group of books so your readers know it's a series and think it's a series. Many writers are hugely successful when they just, they can write a ton of books, but they're not related to each other. And that's great. What we're talking about specifically today is what makes a book a series and how do you do that? And I already know everybody here who's thinking about writing a series is a high achiever. It's hard work. It's a ton of work. It's complicated. And I hope by the end of today, you're going to find it easier and you're going to have a foundation to start from. All right. So what we're going to talk about first is the artistic decisions for writing a series. So we've distilled this down to 10 decisions. And there's many decisions, but what we're looking at are decisions that are going to help you write a stronger series and story in each book in the series, and also decisions that are going to make your time more efficient so you know what you're writing. We're giving you the basics. It's not as in-depth as outlining a novel where you go into every single scene. It's at the higher level. What is your story across a series? And then it's the order you make those decisions in. And so we're going to go through this today, and then you're going to leave here and you're going to know what you're going to do for your series. That's my dream. So we have this beautiful heart here, and the first decision you need to make, and this is the most important decision. And it's really hard to write your series if you don't know this yet. And so this is why we start with this. We talk about a closed series, or you're writing an open series. And all it comes down to, we're going to go through in detail what each of these are, but the high level description right now is in a closed series, there's one story across multiple books. So if we think of the Hunger Games, very famous example, and we're going to give you spoiler alerts on that one, but we chose it because mostly everybody's read it or seen the movies by now. So it's okay. It's not, it wasn't published yesterday. So it's 3 books. So it's 3 stories. But there's one story from book 1 to book 3, and that's a closed series when you're finished with those book 3, the story's over, done. An open series is where there's something connecting the books, like character or setting, but there's an infinite number of books. And if we look at Stephanie Plum by Janet Evanovich, there's a very clear example of she's a bounty hunter, and every book she solves a crime. And that's what connects the series. It's her character and keeps them together. So you're going to make a decision of whether you're writing open or closed. So I'm going to just pop over to Fictionary for a second. So what I'm showing you here is the app, and Lucy, nod if it's showing. Thank you. Very good. So what I want to show you here is where you start when you're making your decision to write an open or a closed series. So I just clicked outline, and we're going to call this manuscript closed, so it represents a closed series. And here inside Fictionary, we've got predefined outlines for you, or templates. And we'll just pick up a closed series here. And this will help you when you're writing your series. Every scene you need for your series to outline at a high level is in here. We've got book 1, then we go down, we've got book 2, and we've got book 3. So we've done a trilogy basically. And inside of here, for every scene, you have your book 1 opening image. We've got our notes here of what should be in an opening image. And so you can reference this all the time. And your goal is something like this. So when we click scene name, you can see your outline together in one place. And I'm going to talk about what all of this means. So you've got your book 1 with your inciting incident for the series, etc., all the way through. So it looks complicated right now, but I'm going to bring it right back up and just show you how it goes. If you were writing an open series, then you would outline and write here and here. I'll just call my very fancy book open, and I would pick a different outline, and I'm going to pick the open series outline. And in the open series outline, it's got a different set of scenes for each book. And what we're looking at here for the open series is what's connecting and how each story arc scene fits in each book. And so this is kind of the gist of what we're going to go over. So when we look at, sorry, wrong chart. So here, when we look at closed and open, just to reiterate, so if you think you're writing a Hunger Games story, go that way. If you think you're writing a Stephanie Plum series, go on the right side of the heart with the opening series. So what we have, I just want to put our offer up quick so you know what's coming in case you don't stay to the end. We in Fictionary, we have live classes taught by people like Linda and Lucy and myself. And there's 6 weeks courses. They run year round, and they come with our StoryTeller Premium Live software. And so for everybody here, we're going to give you 6 weeks free of the software and of the classes. And I'll show you the list of classes at the end, but of course, how to structure your series is coming up soon. And so we thought it would be appropriate for this group. Okay. So for the close and the open, I thought example.
Just 1 second. There was a hand up, but I don't know the gentleman's name.
Because it was Lisa.
Yeah. Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, to start with, that's not my name. I don't know how that happened. And is this a software system that we install, or is this online?
It's all online. And so you just go into, Google or Safari and open it up, and it's all there for you.
So we set up an account. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
This happens online whenever we get around it. But we don't necessarily write there, do we? Is this a Google Docs? Well, does this have
lots of people write there. You have 2 choices. So if you've already written your draft and you want to edit it, you can import that manuscript and edit it there. If you're starting from scratch, you can write your novel from scratch. You can outline it, write it, edit it, all in one place. And all of it grows with you. As your manuscript grows, you can see all of the different, like you can see your story arc and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's a monthly fee, or yearly, or an annual?
Yep. You can do monthly, or you can
like Grammarly or something like that.
Exactly. Yep. And I'll give you the links at the bottom. We've got links to where you can have a look.
Yeah, I see that. So I'm just trying to figure out what I'm looking at here.
With all the details. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Terrific. Okay, so with the closed series and the open series, so I wanted to just throw up some examples. So The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke is a closed series. The Bridgerton is open series. I put it under the wrong column. Legendborn, I meant to put Divergent here, but that's okay. Legendborn, also a closed series. So these are books that have a fixed number of books in them. Open series, Janet Evanovich with the Stephanie Plum series, MC Beaton with the Agatha Raisin series, and then of course Lee Child with the Jack Reacher series. So sorry about the Julia Quinn thing. Goes over to closed. Open. What I mean to say. Alrighty, so let's just go into a little bit more detail of open versus closed. So in a closed series, you've got a fixed number of novels. So you're deciding, are you writing 2, 3, 5, 7, 12, 20, whatever it is. And an open series, you can have an unlimited. So you might not know at the beginning how many books you're going to write. And I'm pretty sure that Janet Evanovich she probably didn't know she's going to hit 30 something books and still be going strong. That's just an incredible achievement. So you can just keep going, and we're going to help you. We're going to show you how you can test if you have enough of an idea for that type of series. The story in a closed series is one continuous story over multiple novels. And in an open series, it's multiple single stories with uniting factor. So if we look at the Hunger Games, it's one story over 3 books. And if we look at Stephanie Plum, each book is a standalone book. So I'm going to talk about the story arc in a second, but the story arc is basically the structure of your story. And in a closed series, there's going to be a story arc that spans the series. So you need an inciting incident, a plot point 1, a middle plot point, a plot point 2, and a climax for the series, not just for each book. For an open series, you've got a story arc for each book, and then you can probably come up with a generic one that applies to your series overall. Then we have the series goal. And the protagonist will have a goal for the series and for each book in the series. And here, the series goal is addressed in the final novel and not before, because once that is addressed, either the protagonist achieves that goal or they don't. That series story is over and done. In an open series, there's a goal for the protagonist in every novel, and it has to be answered in every novel. There's not one for the entire series. Then we have the uniting factors. So for a closed series, it's the plot. So it's just the story that's from book 1 to book 3, book 5, book 7. And in an open series, the uniting factor is either setting or it's character. So one of those things is going to be the commonality for each thing. And like Jack Reacher is Jack Reacher, and that's his series. He's the character uniting factor for all of those books. Then we have the order you read it in. And in a closed series, because it's one story, you don't have to, but you would expect your reader to read the books in order to understand the story. In an open series, they can pick up any of the books and read it, and they get a full story. They don't need to read the book before to fully understand what's going on in that book compared to the other book. Katie asks in the community, so I've been speaking to several people about Fictionary. They are interested. May we have permission to share their coupon code? Oh, I would prefer you do that. Yes, absolutely. It's great. It's there for, this is our goal at Fictionary is to help as many writers as we can possibly help. And we're trying to do it at a price point that, we can still run a business, but help as many people and people can afford it. So yes, please do share. That would be fabulous. Oops. All righty. Okay. So now we have your second decision. So you've decided, is a series closed or is it open? So now you decide how many novels are in your series. And this is important in a closed series because you need to know what book is your story going to end in. And then you need to backtrack that and go, all right, so where's the middle point of my story and what book is that in? And so if you don't decide ahead of time the number of novels, It's very difficult to lay out a plan for each of these. And so that's why we put this as decision number 2. Now you can change this decision. Any of these, well, closed and open are pretty hard to change once you start writing. But you may find as you go through this, as Lucy says, hold these decisions loosely, because the more you learn about your book, you're going to want to come back and go, no, I need 12 books. I can't do this in 3. I have such a big story. There's just no way. On the open series, you decide the uniting factor. So that, are you writing a series that is like Stephanie Plum? So she's the character and every story is going to be about that character. Or are you writing a Bridgerton series where the story is about the setting? It's in Regency, England, and there's a different protagonist in every story. So, there's 2 ways to uniting it. So before we go to the next decision, we're going to talk about a thing that I call skeleton blurbs. And if you've heard me talk before, you know I love skeleton blurbs, and I don't know how anybody could write any book without a skeleton blurb. So we're going to go to that next. And here, so what is a skeleton blurb? It's the shortest version of your series blurb, where all you want to know is who's the protagonist, what's their goal, and what's at stake. And you'll have a skeleton blurb for each individual novel, so you need to know what each book is about. So this is for you only. So it's a tool where you're using this as guidance. You're using it. So when you get that idea, you wake up in the morning and you go, oh, I want to write a book about this. These are the questions you ask yourself so you can strategically move forward. And when you're writing a single book, so the first book of the Hunger Games, is something like Katniss must fight hard, otherwise she's going to die, kind of thing. Like, it's very high level, and I'll show you some examples of them. And in a closed series, you do this one way, and in an open series, you do this another way, because they're different structurally, and I'm going to show you what that means. And so what this does, it's going to keep you focused, and you're also going to test every scene in your novel or series to see if it belongs in your story by relating it back to the skeleton blurb. And does each scene either make it easier or harder for your protagonist to reach their goal? For a closed series, you write your series skeleton blurb first. So who's the protagonist of your series? So it's Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games. You write what their goal is, which is what she's going to be at the end of book 3, which is to take down the Capitol. And you write what's at stake. Well, she and everyone she knows is either going to die or live a life of misery. And that's the skeleton blurb for the series. And now you know your structure of your series. And then you break it into book 1, book 2, and book 3. In an open series, you do it the other way around. You write 3 skeleton blurbs, 1 for each book in your series, or the first 3 books in your series. And then you look at those and look for what's in common. And that's going to help you go forward. And the Bridgerton generic skeleton blurb, what happens in every book is a Bridgerton family member must overcome societal obstacles, otherwise they won't find true love. So every book in the story is based on that premise. And then it makes that a series in Regency, England. Katie says, I've noticed that varies depending on what genre you write in. If you go to bestsellers on Amazon, you go to categories, the virtual bookshelf where it should be sold, you could scan links of bestsellers. Yes. So there, I just want to be clear here to everybody. I'm talking about what's valuable for you as a writer while you're outlining, writing, and editing. When you do a book description, very different from what you're doing here. This is not enough to make somebody read your book. It's just for you. Okay. So then, now we know closed series. I'm going to write 3 books. I'm going to write my skeleton blurbs. And on open series, I know my uniting factor, and I'm going to write my skeleton blurb. So it's very similar. So if we look at, we're going to go over here. I'm going to have a look at the Hunger Games. Hunger Games. So in the app, we give you a spot to put your skeleton blurb under journey, story blurb. And here, the overall blurb for the book is Katniss Everdeen must. I got to get rid of that extra must. We don't need it. I'm going to fix my typo right live. Katniss Everdeen must become the leader of the rebellion and overturn the capital. Otherwise, everyone outside of the capital dies or is doomed of a life of misery. And that's the 3 books. So Protagonist is Katniss. Her goal is to become the leader of the rebellion and overturn the capital. And the stakes are everyone dies or is doomed for a life of misery. When we look at books 1, 2, and 3, in book 1, Katniss must win the Hunger Games, otherwise she dies. Book 2, Katniss must find a way to keep Peeta alive, otherwise Peeta dies and can't protect her family. So the stakes just got bigger. And in book 3, it's the same as the skeleton burb, so the stakes got bigger again. And so now we know, when we're outlining and writing our books, basically we know what's going in book 1, we know what's going in book 2, and we know what's going in book 3. And again, this can change, that's okay. But for now, you keep it as high level as you can. If we look at Bridgerton, we'll look at their blurbs, who we wrote. This is our interpretation of their blurb. Of course, we know it's not the authors. So the other way around, so we, looking at an open series, what we look at is the skeleton blurb for book 1 is Daphne must show Simon he's worthy of a full family life. Otherwise, she won't find true love with Simon. That's book 1. Book 2, another Bridgerton, Anthony must overcome his fear of early death. Otherwise, he won't find true love with Kate. And then book 3, another Bridgerton must overcome the societal judgment due to Sophie's birth. Otherwise, he won't find true love with Sophie. So you can see by doing this, the basic premise for the books is a Bridgerton family member must overcome obstacles. Otherwise, they won't find true love with their love interest. And so now the author is set up that each book, they got to find their protagonist and what different obstacle are they going to have in that time period, and who's their love interest they're not going to be with. And it's as simple as that. And that tells you you've got enough. Okay, we can just keep writing books in this series. Now, I think she's got 8 books because there's 8 siblings, but that doesn't mean she couldn't keep going with, well, there's cousins and there, she could just keep going with this premise. So that's your skeleton burbs. Susan says, what about series with multiple points of view, either for each book or multiple points of view in all the books? Yes, that is such a great question. And guess what? I have a chart on that. So we're going to talk about that in a bit because that comes later. Once you know all of your decisions, it's going to come at the bottom of the heart where then you need to decide on your point of view strategy. And are you writing multiple? Are you writing single? What are you doing there? And so it's important across a series because you don't want to write book 1 and it's a single point of view. And then all of a sudden book 2 is 9 different points of view. And the reader's thinking, but what happened to my protagonist? Okay. So now we start getting into some really, some depth here. And we're going to talk about the story arc. And what we're doing is, for the closed series, we're looking at the series story arc. So what's the inciting incident all the way to the climax in a closed series? And for an open series, we're looking at what are the patterns in those story arc scenes across each book. And when you do this, the reader's going to feel unity between your books and it's going to feel like a series to them, which is what, of course, makes it a series. All right, so we'll go into the story arc a little bit first. So this is just the story arc for one book. And so all the inciting incident is, and whether you're writing a memoir or narrative nonfiction or fiction, something happens near the beginning of the book or before the book that is a shakeup to the ordinary world. So if we look at romance, it's where the love interests first meet. And a romance is really the only genre where you don't want to have the inciting incident before the opening because the reader wants to see them meet. In a fantasy story, it's there's some kind of challenge laid down to them. And that's the inciting incident. And that's what shakes up the world. And that can happen before the book or anywhere up to 15%. And part of the reason this is so important now in where we are in history is with all of the online distributors that give free samples. You need something early, or you don't catch them to keep reading your book. And so technology is influencing the structure of our books because readers are now more demanding. Do I want to read this? No. This one? No. Yeah, this one. Look at there. There's the inciting incident. I mean, they don't know it's an inciting incident, but you as the author will. Then plot point 1 is just where they accept the story goal. So you have your inciting incident, and that leads right up to the story goal. And when you look at your, or accepting the story goal, when you look at your skeleton blurb, the protagonist must do whatever that goal is. This is the scene where they accept the story goal. And then now they've accepted it, they're moving on to their journey, and it happens somewhere between 20 and 30%. These are guidelines. You are the artist. Some very successful books come before and come after that. So this is just for you to have a look and see if it makes sense. What we're trying to avoid is just placing it randomly in the book. There's got to be a reason for why it's wherever it is in your book. Then we have the middle, and the middle is just a change from reactive to proactive. And so this means the protagonist has now accepted their goal and they're reacting to a whole bunch of things. But when they get to the middle, something happens to change that. And now they're going proactively. They're making decisions that decides the direction of the story. Plot point 2 is 2 things. It's the protagonist's worst moment in the story, and they get their final piece of information that they need to get to the climax. And then the climax is whether they achieve the goal or not. And that goal is the goal that's in your skeleton blurb, not something else. And it's very easy. I've had a lot of books and seen that the climax scene is super exciting, but not related back to what's their goal. And it must be, because if they don't either clearly achieve or not achieve the goal, the story's not over. So each of these scenes, if one is missing, there's not a complete story yet. If they don't accept the story goal, there's no story because they didn't accept a story goal. If they don't go from reactive to proactive, they're never going to achieve their goal because they're just reacting to stuff. They're not driving it. So they have to get proactive to finish the story. And if they don't get that final piece of information in plot point 2, they can't achieve the goal. So all of these scenes have to be there. So we'll just pull out the first book of Hunger Games just to put it into something concrete. Now, here's the other thing I want to say about story arcs. You, the author, are going to have one view of what your story arc scenes are. Readers might have a different view. And the reason for this is everybody brings their own experience to a story. And some are going to they're going to see things differently in your book. And so don't worry about that now. What you're looking at is your control over these scenes and what you as the author see. And so when I read the Hunger Games, I might see it one way and somebody else might see it a different way. Totally fine. So we've labeled the inciting incident, Katniss volunteers to save Prim. So this is the moment that the Hunger Games is starting off. And they pick the children who are going to go into this battle. Her sister's chosen, and she steps up and says, "Oh, I'll go instead of my sister." So it's basically, she thinks it's a death sentence herself, but it's her shakeup in her ordinary world. When she enters the arena, that's her plot point 1. She can't turn back. She's in it. There's nowhere to go. She's done. She gets proactive when she allies with another character, and the two of them together figure out how to go and get the enemies, and they have this plan, and off they go. Her lowest point in the story is another character kills Rue, and she's there. And so that's her lowest moment. And the piece of information she gets in there, she kills somebody for the first time. And so she needs that information to know she can actually kill someone to win at the climax. And then the climax, Katniss and Peeta win the games and the story is over. And so you can see very nicely where she's placed her plot points, 10, 20, 50, 70, 90. So it's very beautiful placement. The Hunger Games is an extremely well-structured book. If you want to read a book for structure, it's just fantastic. So now here comes the big thing. So that was just one book. So now you have the job when you're writing a closed series is you need your series story arc. So that means you need an inciting incident for the series, and quite often it's the same scene. And so when we look at the series goal for the series, Katniss must become the leader of the rebellion and overturn the Capitol. Well, to do that, she's got to get through the Hunger Games, and to do that, she has to volunteer. So the inciting incident for book 1 in the series is the same scene. It's kicking off both. Plot point 1 for the series is different than plot point 1 for the book. Plot point 1 is where Peeta and Katniss decide to eat the poison berries. And why this is the plot point 1 is this is where she accepts the story goal of becoming the leader of the rebellion. She doesn't know it, but the whole world is watching. It's live on TV. She's just defied the Capitol and made the challenge. And the people out in the public are now thinking they can have a leader who's going to take them through this. And that's her moment where she gets her plot point 1. And it's after plot point 2. It's actually after the climax of the whole book 1, and so it's very late in the story. Book 2, the middle plot point and the series plot point, middle plot point, are the same. So for the series, she's going to become the leader of the rebellion. Well, this is where she starts believing it, and so she starts proactively thinking she can actually be the rebellion, and she's moving in that direction. She's moving away from just surviving. And the middle plot point for book 2 on its own, if you read it as a standalone, is when she figures out the arena is structured like a clock. And so now she can go, something happens at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, and she can outrun it so that she can survive this and she can make sure Peeta survives. And so that's her goal for book 1 and her middle plot point, where she can proactively go after keeping her and Peeta alive. And then the plot point 2 for the series is where at the end, near the end of book 2, Peeta's taken by the Capitol and her home district has been destroyed. So this is a really, really low moment for her across the series. Then we have book 3. Plot point 2 is where Prim dies. That's the worst moment in that book. But the climax scene brings it all back together. And this is where Katniss kills President Coin. And so she's won, taken over the Capitol, all is good. And so when you're doing your series, closed series, you're looking at find your plot points for your series first, and then you're going to look for your plot points for each book in your series. And then you're fully structured and you can go away to write your heart's content. And things move fast at that point because you have something so solid. If we look at a romance, just to bring up this, like to really start to pull out the different ways you can use the story arc. So in a romance, the inciting incident is when the characters meet. In plot point 1, it's their acknowledged attraction. So they've won, at least one of them has accepted the goal of they want to be with the other person. In the middle in a romance, usually there's something that happens that's a false victory or a false defeat, and that makes them be proactive. And either they decide, no way, I'm out of this, and they do everything they can to not be in the relationship, or they decide, I'm going full force and I'm going to do everything I can to be in it. But then, of course, it all goes bad and they break up at plot point 2. And then at the climax, they have their happily ever after moment. And that is a romance story arc. And you can figure out your romance just by looking at this. Okay, then we're going to talk about open series. So here, patterns. That's what we're doing. Sorry. So in the open series, it's a romance, each of the books, and here the patterns are in the inciting incident. So in The Duke and I is the first book. The Viscount Who Loved Me is the second. An Offer from a Gentleman is the third. And in each of these books, the story arc scenes have something in common. So what they do is in the inciting incident, the meet cute, the love interests meet at a ball. And that's it. They meet very differently. There's some different stress point, but they meet at a ball. The next pattern is there's a romantic trope. So it's fake dating, for example, in book 1. And it's, what's book 2? Friends to Enemies, I think. Enemies to Friends, the other way around. I always get it backward. And book 3, Lucy, is, did I get that backward?
No, book 3 is the social incompatibility.
Right. Yep. Okay. And then in the middle plot point, the protagonist, who's a Bridgerton, saves their lover in some way. And so that's they've accepted, they're going for the story goal, they're going to be proactive. But then, of course, they break up. There's some misunderstanding. It's always a misunderstanding in this case. And that's the commonality. And then there's the happily ever after moment. And so this is what makes the Bridgertons an open series, because it has story arc patterns that are really clear when you pull them out and you read the different books. You'll see what's happening. Just look at the inciting incidents and you can see how she's put this together. So it's a fascinating series to study as well. All right. So we've done that, and now we get to the series structure test. So what you want to do here is you want to decide if you have enough of an idea to support your series. And so we've developed a test that you can objectively do this. And just before I move on, I'm going to answer Debbie's question. If you have a combined protagonist in a romance, yay, Debbie and Fictionary, can one of the protagonists have false victory at the middle and the other have a false defeat? Yes, because it puts them at going in different directions. And so that is going to set up a lot of conflict. And so now they're each seeing the story differently from their perspective. And here I would probably write that from 2 points of view so that you can see one of them's had a false victory and they're going this route, and one's had a false defeat and they're going the other route, and it's going to cause trouble between the two. So that's really interesting, and I think would work quite well. Oh, that's good, because what I did, all right, well, whew, good thing I answered that properly. Oh, that would have been bad if I'd said, no way. I'm sorry, go rewrite your whole book. You don't mind, do you? That won't take long. So the closed series structure test. You're asking first, does the climax scene in the final novel address the series goal? So in the Hunger Games, Katniss must become the leader of the rebellion and take down the Capitol. So does she or doesn't she take down the Capitol? Yes, she does. If you can't answer that, don't have a closed series yet. So that's the first thing to answer in a closed. Are the stakes higher in each consecutive novel? So here, you want to see book 1, there's something at stake. So in Hunger Games, it's Katniss. Book 2, it's Katniss and Peeta. Book 3, it's Katniss, Peeta, and everybody else that Katniss knows or is living outside of the Capitol. Stakes go up, up, up. And they have to go up. And we found that often writers have trouble doing this to find the stakes that increase per novel. And if you think of it like one book, it gets tenser and tenser and tenser. That's what's happening here. Then, does each novel have a different climax scene? So you don't want to fall into a pattern where climax scene 1 is a fist fight, or book 1, climax, book 2 is a fist fight. Oh, book 3, climax is a fist fight. It's boring for the reader. It has to be something different. And it should be something that is harder for the protagonist from book 1 to book 2 to book 3. And that, of course, increases the tension in the story. And then, does the climax scene mirror one of the story arc scenes in one of the previous novels? So if you look at things that have happened, maybe in the inciting incident, the first book in your story, is the climax scene a mirror of that? So in the Hunger Games, Katniss, basically, when she volunteers to take Prim's place, in her mind, she's giving up her life for her sisters. And the mirror to that at the finale, or the climax, is she's killing President Coin to save everybody else. So in the opening, she's giving up her life to save someone. In the closing, she's killing someone else to save everybody. And so the mirror is nicely there to see it. And it doesn't have to be the inciting incident, but if you can bring that together, the reader's going to see it as a whole series. So these are your questions to ask yourself. Ask yourself honestly. Be hard on yourself. Don't go, oh yeah, I've got that. Make sure you have it. And then okay, that's enough. You can keep going. The open series is a little bit different. So is there a setting or a character that unites all novels? So we look at Jack Reacher. He's the character. We look at Bridgerton. The main uniting factor is setting, because it's in Regency England. Secondary one is Bridgerton family members. And so yes, absolutely, there's something that unites either with setting or character. Is each novel a standalone story? So can I walk into my bookstore and pick up book 5, read that book and go, yep, that's all I need to read and I'm happy? Or am I confused and I haven't read the previous book, so I have no idea what's happening? Then we look at, does each novel address the open series in a generic story goal answered for now way? And so here we're looking at, you've answered the the main goal, but there's something left there that makes the reader want to keep reading. And so there's still some craziness going on in the protagonist's life, or there's a little something outstanding, or we know, for example, Agatha Raisin, she's always detecting something. So we know there's going to be a pattern of she will go forward. And does each novel have a different story arc scene? And so here we're showing find the commonality, like in Bridgerton, every inciting incident is the two love interests meet at a ball, but it's a different way of meeting. Some different thing happens. Oh, thank you, Debbie. That's a very nice thing. Debbie likes to learn. That's great. I'm going to ask you later what it is that you learned this time. All righty. Then we look at the setup and resolution. And this is super interesting for a series because you have to decide different things for book 2 and book 3. When you're writing a standalone book in the setup, you've got an ordinary world. And then you go through the rest of the book and the final page of the book is done. But in a series, now in book 2, the character has a new ordinary world. And so you have to decide what is that new ordinary world based on that book or the previous book. And if you think of it like when a reader reads your first book, they don't know anything except what you've said in the book description, and as you dwindle out the information through the book. Well, when they start book 2, they know a whole book's worth of backstory. So you don't want to repeat all of that. You want to choose what's the most important information to share in backstory in your opening. You want to choose how much time has passed between novels. What is their new ordinary world? So based on whether you're closed or an open, something is different because they have to have changed. You know, if they've just solved a murder mystery, well, that's going to do something to you as a person. You have to decide what backstory to include. And here what we recommend is you look at your story arc scenes. And I love Divergent as an example. In book 2, she very specifically uses 3 things from plot point 2 in book 1. Okay, and big spoiler alert, if you haven't read Divergent book 1, in plot point 2, the main character's boyfriend is taken captive by the bad people. Her mother dies and she kills one of her friends. So it's a wicked plot point 2. And the opening of book 2 refers just to her thinking, I've killed my friend. But not how, not why, just enough to go, oh, that's bad. And then it's enough for you to go forward. And so when you're doing a series, you need to think about your setup based on what's happened in the previous book and what you want to share. The resolution, you have to be very careful. So at the end of each book, you have to leave the reader satisfied. You've got to close off your subplots, unless they're subplots that are going across your whole series, and that can be open or closed. So you can have, a subplot that runs through book 1, book 2, book 3, or like Stephanie Plum, there's like that love triangle that goes on for 30 books. How is that possible? But that is a subplot and everybody keeps reading about it. So it's crazy, but it works. All right, so that's the difference. So setup and resolution. The other thing I want to say about resolution in a series, don't make the exit hook so big the reader's frustrated. So you have to answer in book 1, did the protagonist achieve their story goal or not for book 1? The reader must know that. What you're leaving open is the series story goal, and that's going to carry them through to the next book. If you don't answer the book 1 goal, the reader's going to feel cheated and annoyed, and it just doesn't work. So you got to be really careful between the two, which is why we go, you need a skeleton blurb for the series and for each book. So that's the exit hooks. You just want to be a little bit careful. Then we have a protagonist strategy. So here you need to know who your protagonist is. So in Divergent, there's a single protagonist, Tris, for book 1 and book 2. And in book 3, it's combined its 2 characters, Tris and Tobias. So that's a very unusual way to do it. In Hunger Games, Katniss is the protagonist the whole way through. Jack Reacher's the protagonist. So you need to decide, are you going to have one? Or Bridgerton, you're going to have different protagonists for each book. And you've got to decide that. If you do something crazy like the Hunger Games, super complicated book, they have what's called a group protagonist, and it's the humans against the White Walkers. And so the humans need to beat the White Walkers, otherwise everybody dies. Simple as that. And so that works all the way through. Each book is written that way, where Hunger Games very targeted one character. Then we have the rest. I'm just going to go through these now because we're getting tight on time. So we've got point of view strategy. So here you're deciding how many point of view characters you're going to use. And you can use one. So first person, the books that we looked at, Legendborn, One for the Money Legendborn and One for the Money, they're single protagonists, and I'll show you that in a minute. Single point of view. You can do multiple point of view. Lee Child writes like that. And what you're deciding when you write single point of view, so there's only one character who the reader experiences their eyes through, you're deciding the reader will know every single thing that the protagonist knows. No more, no less. They know that. When you write from multiple point of views, you're deciding the reader is going to know more than the protagonist. And so you can create knowledge gaps and tension by doing that. You give less page time to the protagonist, so there's the downside of it. Maybe it's harder for your reader to connect. So when you're deciding on point of view, you're basically deciding what's the reader going to know compared to what the protagonist knows. So if we just look at the Hunger Games again, the reader knows everything that Katniss knows. If we look at something like Jason Bourne series, it's multiple point of view. Jason, well, he doesn't even know what he knows because he's lost his memory as a protagonist, but there's other characters who know more, and you get bits and pieces pulling it together. And his struggle is trying to figure out those bits and pieces, but the reader gets those aha moments of, oh, I know that, and he doesn't know it. And then he's making the wrong decision, but the reader's like, yeah, I know what this is, so don't do that. And it causes all those really super tense moments. The narrative strategy is just, are you writing first person? So I did, I saw, or third person, she did, he said, they saw, etc. And then tense is just present tense or past tense. And the reason we put these in as decisions is we want everybody to look at, think about this ahead of time before you're writing your series, and it's going to help you as you write it, and you won't go so far off track. You can change later. You may decide after you outline a full book that, oops, I chose single point of view, but I need 2 points of view, or I need 3 points of view, and that's okay. Then at least you're controlling it and you're doing it for a reason and not just accidentally slipping in different points of view. Alrighty, that is the 10 decisions for the heart. And Lucy do the heart because it's Lucy. So I just wanted to give a visual for closed series. So Unbroken, Bridgerton and Jack Reacher are all multiple points of view. Legendborn and Janet Ivanovich, One for the Money, the Stephanie Plum series, and the Agatha Raisin are all single points of view. So these authors in different genres, different types of series have chosen different point of view strategies. So doesn't matter the type of book or the type of series, it's just about the control and what you want the reader to know versus the protagonist, and that's it. And if you haven't read these books, they're all awesome books. Okay, so that is that. I'm just going to do a very quick, for everybody, the offer coming up, just so you know, we've got a course called 6 Weeks to Structure Your Entire Series. It's going to be taught by one of our Fictionary Live, Fictionary certified instructors, and Lisa Taylor. And basically we go through 6 weeks, and what we do is we take you through the app and we show you how to make all of these decisions. So by the end of this 6 weeks, you've got the structure for your series solid and you can move forward. Gives you lots of time to play. You get homework every week. It's really fun. They're not recorded because we want people to work on their books live, ask questions about their actual book, the structure of their book, what they're trying to do, and help them really, by the end of each session, have more work done on their series. So that is the next stuff that's coming up. And then on top of that with Fictionary Live, so we've got Story Foundations, and this is the 5 must-have scenes, which is, of course, the story arc scenes and how you do those in your novel. We've got novel editing part 1 and part 2. We've got Forge Your Fantasy. We've got a romance course. And these courses all run continually. And when you're in Fictionary Live, you can attend any of them as many times as you like. And so with our offer, we've got the coupon FFW 2024, and we must thank Funds for Writers for having us here because, it's an awesome crowd.